One day during the Christmas season, Lily was strolling through the market with a friend when they decided to take a shortcut through a narrow passage. As they walked, she suddenly spotted Jack approaching the same passage, accompanied by his brother Justin and another man, a European named Mr. Lee. That's when something strange happened. As she glanced back, she saw a young billionaire, Mr. Justin. He was following behind his brother, Mr. Jack. The moment they looked face to face, Lily's mind seemed to drift away from reality. It was as if she was pulled into another world where she found herself witnessing vivid scenes, a vision, unlike anything she had ever experienced.
Lily saw was Justin, dressed in a traditional white Korean robe, standing tall and heroic. He held a sword in his hand, fighting fiercely like a knight. Surrounded by enemies, he defended a group of poor villagers who looked to him as their savior. As he fought, the wind blew gently through the trees, and small leaves floated and rolled in the breeze around him, creating a magical atmosphere. Justin's bravery was unmatched, his sword slicing through the air as he protected the villagers who were crying out for help. He was their hope, their protector in a time of dire need. The scene was so vivid and filled with emotion that Lily could feel the desperation of the villagers and the strength of Justin's resolve to save them. In the next scene, Lily saw a tribal woman wearing a dark green frock who looked remarkably like her. The woman's face was filled with pain and determination. Her lover had been brutally tortured and killed by a ruthless, unknown gang of bandits. The tragedy left her devastated, but instead of succumbing to grief, she swore revenge. She began planning her vengeance alongside her brother, the leader of their bandit group. Together, they prepared in secret, training high in the hills, far away from prying eyes. Their goal was to wage war against a town, but the woman's aims is to revenge the killer of her lover. Her real intention is not about wage war to town in the Kent town. Her fellow bandits dressed in black, resembling stealthy ninjas. They were armed to the teeth, carrying long guns, ropes, and a variety of sharp iron weapons. Their resolve was fierce, and they moved with the silent precision of warriors ready to strike. The vision was intense, filled with the tension of an impending battle. Mr. Jack alias Sean was planning an enormous scheme for big profit in business that is also big reason of war in future, meticulously crafted with all his effort. On the surface, the plan appeared unimpressive, almost shabby, so that people wouldn't notice it. But it was intended to work effectively as a large-scale operation. However, the plan was later destroyed by his mother's lover, Mr. Thomson. Mr. Jack failed to figure out who was behind it, and Mr. Thomson shifted all the blame onto Lily and Mr. Jack's younger brother, Mr. Justin. In this scene, Mr. Jack lashes out angrily at Lily. It becomes apparent that because of a mistake Lily made, people had become aware of Mr. Jack's dark plan. He looked at her with intense anger, believing Mr. Thomson's accusations. Mr. Thomson also blamed Mr. Justin for the failure. Enraged, Mr. Jack harshly scolded Mr. Justin, his anger boiling over. But Mr. Justin stood his ground against Mr. Jack's misguided beliefs. Courageously, he chose to help the people who were suffering so much due to the ongoing war. Despite this, Mr. Thomson left Mr. Justin with a malicious task: to do something terrible to Lily. Something Mr Thomson himself had often done with Mr Jack before they were left the valley of Kent Town later. In the fourth scene of visions, Lily saw a man who appeared to be the leader of a small group of people. He was deeply concerned about Lily, always trying to protect and help her, though Lily couldn't see or recognize him. He wore simple white clothes, but they were marked with stains of dust and blood, hinting at the hardships he had faced. Despite his weariness, the man's resolve was unwavering. His palace, though humble, was shielded by 3 massive layers of rock, forming an impenetrable fortress around him. It stood as a symbol of his strength and protection, a place where he could offer refuge to those in need. His worry for Lily weighed heavily on him, and though she is unable to see of his presence, he watched over her from afar, ready to step in when the time was right. The next vision transported Lily into a war-torn landscape. On one side, the troops of the hill people were hiding, preparing for a sudden attack. Dressed in green uniforms, they were stationed at the foot of the hills. However, the valley people were not seasoned warriors. They had little understanding of the true brutality of war. They came to the battlefield not with the mindset of seasoned soldiers, but with the naive sense of duty to protect their community. In charge of the defence, they stood in stark contrast to the hill people who were fully prepared for the bloodshed to come. The valley troops seemed almost too broad-minded, their seriousness dampened by their lack of experience with the grim realities of death and destruction. They stood bravely, but unprepared for the violence that was soon to unfold. The well-trained since many years for war, the hills troops are trying to strike the valley people who were camped in the foot of the hills. The tension in the air was thick, as both sides were poised for battle. Mr Jack left Kent Town after a conversation with his mother, Mrs Diana, and her lover, Mr Thomson. They had told lie to him that the girl he would marry in the future is another woman which has similar look like Lily, who has fair-skinned Mongoloid woman whom Mr Jack will marry in future. This news weighed heavily on Jack, and so he decided to leave, accompanied by his mother and Mr Thomson, travelling to a distant place far from Kent Town. As they left, a huge dark cloud seemed to follow them, a cloud that represented the ominous plan Jack had set into motion back in the third scene. The darkness loomed large, symbolizing the consequences of Jack's carefully crafted scheme. It wasn't something that would unravel quickly. The plan was a long-term one, its success stretching over time, bringing with it an air of secrecy and manipulation that would impact those left behind for a long while. The shadow of Jack's departure cast a long dark veil over Kent Town, as his plan, carefully designed, continued to unfold in his absence. In last scene, Lily had a vision of the woman Mr Jack would one day marry. Through a small bright window, she saw the young woman sitting alone, dressed in a sleeveless white gown. Her expression was bold, defiant, as though she were resisting something unseen. Her black straight hair fell just below her shoulders, framing a fair oval face, a Saiyan. Lily's mind slowly returned to the present, and she noticed Mr Justin staring at her with a strange intensity. His bitter eyes were filled with anger, barely concealed behind a cold gaze. Lily felt a wave of shame wash over her, unsure of what to do or say. Her thoughts became even more muddled when her friend Jenny, standing just behind her, urged, "Come on, let's move a little faster. It's getting too crowded here."